Okay.
Yeah.
Go back to the menu.
Just say got it.
Mhm.
And now go back to,
It's not being recorded just yet, is it? Okay,
uh-uh.
we just gotta remember to mesh. Right. So that's all it is.
Okay, yeah.
Go back to the menu.
Just say got it.
Mhm.
Oh, dang. Oh.
You need to mute yourself.
Hey, Crystal.
So sorry.
It's okay. It's just okay. We're good. I just told everybody we would be starting in a few minutes. So we're happy to have you. I'm going to share opportunities if you want to show your screen. I'll make you a co-host really
Oh,
quick.
yes. Thank you. So we have 38 people registered.
Yes. We have a few people in the waiting room right now. So
Okay.
sending out that last note to let people know, hey, jump on if you have a moment.
Am I going to be able to see people? Are they going to be able to see me? How are we doing this?
Yeah, you can see people. I'm gonna get off of the screen, but yes, you can see people.
Because I like my presentations to be interactive. So.
I know you're an interactive lady.
So
I have making you a co-host.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so I need your help in saying.
Okay. All right, let me get a bottle of water.
And Miss Cherry is there out of the head.
Yes. And you see me. She wants to go get a bottle of water.
Take it. Me right there and say something.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yep. I'm gonna start letting people in, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to the social media.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for joining us for Sage Circle this month. We have a great speaker. She is full of knowledge and energy, Miss Christal Cherry. She'll be talking about board representation, Black women on boards. And I'm not going to steal her thunder because,
You can share your
she
screen.
is
I'm not.
phenomenal in her own right. I am going to just thank you all again for joining. Thank you all for being a part of Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. And I'm going to turn it over to Crystal so we can get this going and let you all learn and talk. Crystal, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Joy. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Good to see you all. Hey, Deborah, Tanisha, Shavona, Tiara. Was that Roni? Nice to see you. Cassandra, welcome, welcome, welcome. Do me a favor and just put in the chat like what your organization is and what your role is. If you're an executive director, if you're a VP of something or for fundraising, I would love to know who actually is in the room. And while y'all are doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and get my PowerPoint up and going here. Why don't you go ahead and indicate in the chat too, what color describes how you're feeling right now? What color describes how you're feeling right now? I have to tell you, I'm feeling a little orangey. I don't know, maybe red, because I was just telling Joy, I was a little late coming on because I found like my toilet was flooding upstairs in my upstairs bathroom. So I was trying to get the water off. Don't you guys know that sometimes crazy stuff like that happens when you're about to have a meeting or a presentation and you're trying to figure out, oh my God. That's just the way life is though, huh? But I'm here. I'm glad to be here and glad to see so many faces. So Joy, can you share what's going on in the chat?
Yes, I
What are
can.
people saying? Where are they from? What are they feeling?
So we have Cassandra from All About the Ballots, co-founder president. We have Deborah from Step Ahead Scholars.
Oh, yes.
Tiara from Strengthening Her Evolution. She's the executive director, and Deborah is the executive director. And Rayoni, executive director of 3D Girls, Inc.
Okay.
I haven't gotten colors yet.
Okay, so we got a lot of executive directors, presidents, and CEOs in the room. You guys are actually making all the magic happen. So first, let me just applaud you because I know how stressful and challenging it can be to be at the top of the nonprofit, trying to make all the decisions, trying to hire staff, trying to get enough money in the door to keep your programs running, trying to manage your boards. There's a whole lot that goes into being an executive director. So let me just applaud you out the gate because they expect us to be magicians when we're in these roles, right? But you guys hold it down. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So I like to open every presentation by introducing myself and sharing a little bit about me. First, I'd just like to say that I'm a mom. I have a 13-year-old little boy. Actually, he's not little. He's almost the same height as me, and I'm 5'9". So I'm a mompreneur, which just means I'm a kick-ass mom and an entrepreneur. For a living, I'm a board consultant. The name of my firm is The Board Pro, and I work with nonprofits to help them build better boards. I'm also a board member. I sit on the board of a local YMCA here in Atlanta. I also work with companies and organizations on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and access. I'm a volunteer, a lover of anything purple, hence my purple slides today, a breakfast lover, John Legend fan. I don't know if we have any John Legend fans in the house. When I say your thing, just give me a high five or a snap or something. You're a breakfast lover, you love waffles. I just had a waffle, waffles or eggs any time of the day, some bacon, corned beef hash. That's me all day long. I'm also consider myself a professional troublemaker. I'm always trying to question things, question the status quo. Why do boards have to be a certain way? Why do nonprofits have to be a certain way? And I think it's good that we sometimes be a professional troublemaker and just ruffle the waters just a little bit, because things won't change unless we start having some difficult conversations about things. So I consider myself a professional troublemaker. Hey, Tamika, I think she's new. I don't remember seeing her name. Alice, Tamika, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're asking everybody to put their names and organizations and what you do for your organizations in the chat. Hey, Erica. So I can see who's in the room. Looks like right now we have a lot of executive directors and CEOs. Is that still the case, Joy? Let's see. The Power of Girls. Tamika, what's your role with the Power of Girls? Put it in the chat. Tiara is the executive director of Strengthening Her Evolution. Okay. Somebody's feeling pink. Thanks, Tanisha. Pink is an attitude. You're right about that. Raoni, good trouble. That's right. All right. Well, I'm going to keep it moving while y'all keep coming in. So I have a question I want to open up with today. So what we know is that about half of board members are women. We make up 51% of nonprofit boards. That's new. We used to trail behind men on nonprofit boards, but now we make up a little bit more than half. And we make up more than half of CEOs, executive directors like yourselves. Why then do men still hold the highest paid jobs in the nonprofit sector? I want to hear from you on this. So you can unmute. What do you think is the reason why men still hold the highest paid jobs in the nonprofit sector when most of us who work in this sector are female? Anybody, speak up. Okay, let me stop sharing because I'm gonna have to give some rules and regulations here. So the way this goes is I am an interactive presenter. That means I'm gonna expect some participation back from y'all. I'm not gonna just talk to y'all while y'all are making breakfast and balancing your checkbooks. I want you fully present in this space, which means if you could turn on your camera so I can see your eyeballs, I would love that. And if you can participate in this conversation, that'll make it even more engaging for all of us, including me. So the question is, more than half of us represent nonprofit boards, and 60% of us are the leaders of our nonprofits. Why then do men still hold the highest paid jobs in our sector? What's going on?
I was going to say sexism, but somebody put it in the chat as well.
Mm-hmm. You want to expound on that, Cassandra, since you're one of the few people who I can see? What do you mean when you say sexism?
Well, historically, men have been have made up most of the boardrooms and things like that, and then also the pay gap. You know, that's a known thing that women typically get paid less than men, and you know, there's been some recent legislation that should change that, but I guess it's a slow process because it hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Anybody else? What do you think, Tamika Key? Why is it that men still hold the highest paid jobs when we have more than half of the CEO positions?
So I was going to actually say something a little bit opposite. I think it's our own internal bias that we still have to work through. So it's the things that we have inside of us that still put them in that position. So even though we're, like you said, 61 or whatever, or 50, over 50%, we still have our own internal bias, whether it be sex or race, et cetera.
What do you think, Tiara?
I actually agree with Tamika. Women, we do struggle with confidence. We struggle with challenging, or I would even say negotiating our salaries and understanding really what we're truly worth. And so that's definitely something that I feel that keeps us from not being equal when it comes to men in those same roles.
So Deborah, what they all said is true. There is sexism, of course. Men, even though women make up 60% of nonprofit CEOs, men make up the rest with organizations that have very high budgets, right? And so a lot of the organizations that our women are holding down at the lead are small nonprofits. And so therefore they don't have the same kind of funds. They don't have the same support in terms of their boards. The same powerhouses that sit on some of these larger nonprofit boards are not the same boards that some of our women have, right? And then forget we haven't even talked about Black women yet. We're just talking about women right now, right? So I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of the fact that men still hold the top seats at the large nonprofits, and therefore they have the connections with the foundations and some of the individuals who can make 6- and 7-figure gifts to them. And I think women also don't go for it. You know, we don't believe that we're worthy of it. We don't ask for the same things. We don't advocate for ourselves the same way that men advocate for themselves. So I think it's a combination of things, and certainly worthy of some thought. So the rest of you who have not said anything yet, I want you to think about and contemplate why you think it is that although we make up the biggest part of the nonprofit sector, whether we're the CEO or the board member or the board chair, we still have a long, long way to go. So thank you for those who are coming on board and turning on their cameras so that I can see your faces, and those who will agree to be fully engaged in this conversation. I'm gonna get back to sharing my screen so we can talk a little bit more about women on boards. So what I want to do was to share a little bit about what the agenda is going to look like this afternoon. We're going to talk about how we can use our voices to make change. We're going to learn some things about being in the know. We're going to learn what you should know before joining a board, where to find good board seats are, how to get in the pipeline. And we're going to talk a little bit about the prep work needed to accept Black women on boards, the proper onboarding that needs to happen, how to create Black women ready board culture. You guys probably didn't even know that was a thing. Black women ready board culture. Learn about the value of our collective networks, and then how to own our own superpower. One of the things I don't have on here that we could talk about is the board chair CEO relationship. That is really, really big. So just being in the know, I just wanted to share some things with you. Did you know that in 1975 to 1999, we had the largest percent of Black people serving on boards, even up to this day? Because right now, Black people on board make up about 6 to 7% of our boards. But back in 75 to 99, we had up to 8% of people serving on boards who were people of color, Black people. Why do you think that is? Look at the years. Tell me what was going on during that time. Sherry, I see you got the same that I was thinking it was happening with my Zoom a couple weeks ago. When Zoom updated, I don't know if you recently updated your Zoom, but when Zoom updated, and that glitch that you have going on, Sherry Radcliffe, happened to me too. And I can't remember what I did to make it stop, but I recognize it.
Yeah, it does that all the time.
Yeah, there was something that happened when they updated Zoom, and I forget, I Googled it. There was something you had to go in and click on to make that thing happen. So when you get a chance,
Okay.
give it a Google
All right,
search.
thank you.
Anybody else want to share? What do you think was going on in 75 and 79 while we had so many Black people serving on boards? Come on, some of my folks, my baby boomers, some of y'all been around for 45, 50 years. What you think? My young folks might not know, but my 45, 55, and 65-year-olds, y'all know what was going on in 75 to 99. What was happening?
Racism.
Oh, racism is still happening. That has never stopped.
Segregation.
Post civil rights movement, it was after a lot, the majority of that.
Yes, we were on the heels of the civil rights movement, right? And at that time, everybody was still excited about Black Lives Matter. Remember, we're back to it again, Black Power, right? Advocating for Black people, just like we're kind of hopefully with the phase that we're in now. But we had a high percentage of folks serving on boards. What part of the nonprofit sector do you think these Blacks were serving on? What kind of nonprofits were they serving on back then? These Black people, 8% of them. Which nonprofits they mostly serving on? That did what?
I think that they probably were doing anti-poverty work because that was, like the catchphrase at the time.
That's a good guess. Anybody else?
Not the right one, but yes.
Would it be like the NAACP, like, or nonprofits like that?
Education.
Yeah.
Education, right? Sitting on boards at their colleges and universities, their HBCUs, for nonprofits that were trying to educate our young folks. That's the boards we were sitting on back then, right? So our smaller nonprofits with revenues less than $1 million were the boards that most of our Black members were serving on, right? But we know that by 2060, the US population will be more than half will be women of color. We about to outweigh and outnumber everybody on this earth. Black men, white women, and white men, women of color. But we also know that companies have now stepped up since 2020. Companies like Goldman Sachs are saying to some of their board members, we need y'all to scoot over and scoot out. Because we realize that we've been holding this thing down for all these years, and it's time to start letting some other folks in. And we need to start letting women, particularly, in at our table. So I wanted you to be in the know about some of the stats, past and present. Tell me about this image and what this image says to you.
That image to me is all about inequity.
Inequity. They're both starting at the same place. You see that, right? It's not like he has an advantage or they're both at the start line. What's happening with her at the start line? What's the picture showing?
The regular things that we are faced with, the barriers that we're faced with in philanthropy, in nonprofit world, everything that we're faced with in access to information, resources, knowledge, tools, and money, especially.
All of that. You see the alligator, you see the half of the brick wall, you see the fence with the spikes on it, right? What has she got on her foot?
Ball and chain.
before she can even take off, before
So one
she
of the
can even
things-
get started, before she even gets to all those obstacles that are in her way or in front of her, she got a ball on her foot, which means her takeoff is even going to be slower than his. Whether she can even take off, if that ball is too heavy, she gonna fall, right? And if she take off, she might fall, she might hurt herself. And if she's able to take off, she's certainly going to be off to a slower start than he is. And then once she gets started, she has all of these things in her way. Like you said, the alligator, no money, the brick wall, a board that does not engage, right? The spiket fence, foundations that won't support organizations led by women of color. These are all of the obstacles that stand in the way of us succeeding. But we all started at the same point, right? So why can't we just all get along? This is what white folks are saying. Why can't women and Black folks? We don't understand. You started at the same point I started. Why can't you pull up your bootstraps and get there just like I did? But what they don't see is all of these things that are in our way. Difference between equity and equality, right? Equity involves trying to understand and give people what they need to enjoy and feel happy lives, giving them an opportunity to make it, but without the same barriers, removing all the barriers that we know stand in our way so that we do have an equal chance. Equality aims to ensure that everyone gets the same things in order to enjoy full, healthy lives. But equity, like equality, aims to promote fairness and justice, right? So we know that as women and as Black women, when we sit on boards, when we lead organizations, we have a ball on our foot sometimes, and we have a whole bunch of things in our way before we can even get halfway up the road. So the fact that you all have made it to the ED roles and that you are running these organizations, you founded these organizations, causes for a round of applause. So I just want to applaud you because I know how difficult it is for you to get where you've gotten. So bravo, bravo, bravo. So y'all, this is what's been going on for way too long in our sector, right? Not only in our sector, even in the world, in corporate America and in nonprofit sector. White women make up 76% of fundraisers at our nonprofits. And I can talk a little bit about this because I'm a recovering nonprofit fundraiser, so I know what that's about. But if these are the people who are going out to ask for the money, do you think they're going to go out and advocate for you and I? Do they know how to build relationships with donors who maybe don't look like them? So you got this white woman here holding up the umbrella. She don't have no rain pouring on her. You see the sister standing all around her with a little attitude, like, we're getting wet over here. Hello. It's time to share the umbrella. It's time for us as Black women to stand up for ourselves and demand that we have our own umbrella. And I don't mean she gets her own and then these two over here have to share one and these three over here have to share. Everybody deserves their own umbrella in this space. I do want to give you some words of encouragement. I want to let you know that Black women are way makers. We are the fastest growing entrepreneurs. Black women make up 2.4 million business owners, ages 35 to 54. We have surpassed Black men as entrepreneurs. Boards with a higher percent of women are graded higher by CEOs for their fundraising performance. When we get on a board, we also learn how to raise money for our nonprofits. We bring in diversity of thought, a competitive edge, essential skills. We're more apt to look at the strategic plan that was created for our organizations. We take the strategic plans off the shelf and we actually look at them and say, let's look at these goals and figure out how we're going to get to where we need to get to. And then at the end of the day, we want our boards to evaluate themselves for their own performance. So women, when we get on boards, we roll up our sleeves, we look at the strategic plan, we want to see what these goals are, we begin raising money for them, and then at the end of the day, we want to evaluate ourselves on how well we did. We pay attention to those details. Men more autocratic, and they don't. So women are way makers, and Black women even more so. So we bring a wealth of information and skill sets to nonprofit boards and the nonprofit space. So you may be wondering, where can we go? We know where you can go to find Black women to sit on boards. You know, here in Atlanta, you know, whenever I'm doing a board search and I'm looking for board members, particularly members of color, I'm going to my local AFP here, Association of Fundraising Professionals. I go to bridgespan.org, which is now called impactopportunity.org. The United Way here in Atlanta has a VIP program, which is volunteer involvement program, which they are always looking to find board seats for women and people of color. I use LinkedIn. I go on to BoardNet USA, and then the Atlanta Women's Foundation also has a program to teach women how to sit on board. So it's time for us to grab a seat, because we know that being the only woman surrounded by men can be a challenge, but it's okay. The more of us who are bold enough to grab a seat, the more of us there'll be on boards. So some things you should know. If I was going to join a board now, this is the questions I would ask. Now, knowing what I know as a board consultant, these are the questions I would ask. And if you're an executive director, the questions that your candidates should ask before joining your board. Who is the board chair? What is the racial and gender composition of the board I'm about to join? How will I be onboarded? Is this board culture welcoming of me and my different ideas? Can I come with my afro or my locks? Can I come with an earring in my nose? Can I come if I'm a Muslim and I don't eat meat, or if I have on hijab? What is the culture of this organization? How is confrontation handled? If someone says something out of their mouth and they're offensive to me, how will that handle? Who is the executive director of this organization? What is the racial composition of the staff? Does the staff represent the community that you serve, the clients that you serve? How's the culture of philanthropy inside this organization? How do they raise money? Are donors of color engaged? Are there opportunities to engage with clients? And see, people join boards, they don't ask these questions. Does the organization issue public statements addressing inequities in the communities they serve? People just join boards because they think, oh, it's a good resume builder. Oh yeah, so-and-so is on the board too, and I want to get to know him. Oh yeah, I'm passionate about that mission. Yeah, it's good for you to be passionate about the mission, but there's some other questions that you should ask and that your board members should ask before they jump on a board, because these things will determine what your board experience is like. So fewer than 5% of board seats are held by women of color. Now, I just got finished telling you that 51% of board members are women. But of that 51%, only 5% of them are women of color. So this goes to tell you we got a long way to go. Women of color have a high recycle rate, which means particularly in the corporate sector, they're asking the same women over and over to sit on the same boards, right? We're the most underrepresented group of all to serve on corporate boards. Black women with power and influence, we have to knock down some doors so others can also have access, right? So this is some things that we know that in order for us to be at the table, we have to be ready to advocate for ourselves. We need to create a pipeline so there's always a group of Black women ready, at the ready, to serve. If you have 2 or 3 seats that are about to come open on your board, you need to have a couple of names in mind before they even roll off the board of individuals that you have in mind to come on your board. So if I'm saying to you, if you're interested in being in the pipeline, you need to get a mentor that can help devote some resources to your career and growth and development. You need to go for that promotion at work to put you in positions where you're responsible for profit and loss and executive roles where you're qualified to sit on a board. If you're not ready to sit on a board now, maybe think about an advisory board, right? Or serving on a committee of a board, which might not require as much time and money from you, but it gives you some experience and it helps to prepare you when the board seat does open up, then you're ready and you're qualified. There's a company called BoardNet USA. You can go to their website if you're interested in finding a board to serve on. They have board announcements there. So the question may come up, how boards can address bias and gender inequity. What kinds of things can they do? So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask you all the question. What can boards do to start to begin to address some of the inequities that we just talked about in terms of gender? What are some things they can do? Any ideas?
I think they just need to be diverse themselves. So one of the things that we are trying to do is that our girls, of course, are Black girls. I do have one white board member who's been very resourceful, but we are all women, and we've never taken our perspective from a man's perspective, like, because there are single men that have daughters. So we're trying to figure out different ways, like, you know, again, not to just be like, because we kind of created our own bias by being only Black women. So we're like, okay, how do we get Black men on our board to make it just more diverse? Again, it's just trying to take that bias away from ourselves. So just being more diverse. And then another thing is age. We tend to have women on our board that are more my age, so like 45, between 35 and 45, but trying to see if there's those young professionals out there, because the way we fundraise and the way the newer generation is fundraising, just even the way they communicate, is completely different. I'm an emailer. I do not like text because I like to be able to look at streams. It's just like things like that that we have to just think about. So that's the way that we're trying to be like more diverse and more hip and looking at what other nonprofits are doing to make it work better.
Absolutely. I think having a well-rounded board is smart. You want to have those young folks, like you said, they're on TikTok and Instagram. I'm on Facebook and I'm doing email. I'm like you, right? And then, you know, even some of your older folks who might be in their 50s and 60s, they may be about to retire, but they have institutional history. They have experience having served on boards, right? And they have time. And some of them are retiring. They have a little bit more time to dedicate. So I think having a mix of all of those different groups on your board probably makes sense. And certainly having some men. I mean, usually it's the opposite. Usually it's all men and we can't, you know, we don't have as many women, but you have the opposite problems. Anybody else? Somebody talks about tokenism. So, you know, somebody's got to be the first to serve on a board, right? If your board is all white or your board is all female, or your board is all male, or they're all straight people, and you're looking to add someone from the LGBTQI community, there's always going to be the first person who comes from that group, right? And so how do we not make that one person who's the first person to come on not feel tokenized? What do we do? Shavonna, what do you think? What do we do? You're the first Black woman to serve on a board. Everybody else on this board are all white women. How do we not make you feel tokenized, Shavonna? Any ideas?
Well, I show up as my genuine self, for one, and what I bring in my perspective from my skill set and who I am is going to always present itself. So, yeah, and
Okay.
I'm not really sure exactly, but
Okay.
that's a start for me.
Okay,
To be my genuine self.
let's do this. Sante, am I saying that right? Shavonna's going to be the first. Shanti, Shavonna's going to be the first Black person on your board. Your board is all white right now. You're trying to diversify. You've identified Shavonna as someone you want on your board. What are you going to say to her when you have those initial conversations when you're recruiting her? What are you going to tell her?
That's difficult, especially in the South. And I know how that is because especially when we're the first ones, we do feel tokenized. Mm-hmm. But I do think having that conversation and saying that we need her, not just only at the table, but her perspective, her engagement in order to reach that population. Oftentimes, and I'm pretty sure every Black woman on this call, when we're the first ones, we do feel tokenized, and it can feel a little like fear when you're the only one in the room. So I think making her feel comfortable and oftentimes listening before you speak. Sometimes we just want to say all these things that we think are the right things, but I think actually listening, having a conversation and hearing her perspective, see what she could bring to the table, and then also put her in a role where the other board members are able to learn from her. So that may be a chair position or a working group committee chair position, so they're able to engage with Shavonna. So I think that would be a bonus. And then making sure that as we include her, also begin to include the partners she already works with. In addition to that, if she's rolling off in 2 or 3 years, tell her tell her to be thinking of someone that could fill her shoes even after her term ends.
Well, I tell you, Santee, for somebody who you weren't sure what to say, you sure said a whole lot. And let me just tell you how you right on point, sis. So one of the things we need to do when we're bringing in somebody new who's going to be the first is that we have to be transparent with them. Listen here, we realize we have not done a good job. We have a community of Black and brown folks that we're serving, yet everyone on our board is white. And we realize that we need to do something about it. Shavonna, you bring a wealth of information to our board. You're qualified, you're in a great position at your job, you're a go-getter. You are someone who's qualified to be on our board, whether you're Black or white. But that you are Black is helpful in this case because we are trying to do a better job of diversifying. So we don't want you to think that we're only asking you to be on this board because you're a Black woman. That certainly helps. But what's most important, Shavonna, is that you have the skill set and the qualifications and the passion that we are looking for to round out our board. So yes, you will be the first person of color on our board, and we are working to recruit additional folks. So while you're the first right now, you will not be the first and the only for long. We are going to be looking for other people to serve on our board soon. But right now, Shavonna, we think you're someone that's going to add something to our board, and we hope that we can make this experience one that will be rewarding for you as well. So we're going to assign you a board buddy, someone who's been on our board for a while who can show you the ropes. We want to give you an opportunity to take a leadership role on our board. We want people to see what we see when we recruit you. So if someone comes at you like that, it's hard to feel tokenized because they've been transparent with you. They're telling you, yes, your personhood, your womanhood, your color of your skin, it does matter for us. But more importantly, what matters is that you're a role model in your community, and that's the kind of people we're looking for on our board. So yes, you still are the only Black person on the board, but how they come at you with it, how transparent they are about the mistakes that they've made in the past and that they're trying to do better, makes me feel better. Like, okay, I go in with my eyes open, I know where they are. Absolutely. And Santee, the idea of putting her in a role where she has some responsibility where everyone else can see her, I think is a fabulous idea. Does anybody else have anything to add that we've not done? Thank you, Santee. Your comments were very helpful. Does anyone else have anything to add that we haven't talked about? A way to make Shavonna not feel so tokenized being the first person of color on the board? Would you say or do something different? Okay. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate that. Let's get back to our presentation. Again, when you come on the presentation with Christal Cherry, she's going to put you to work. You can't just sit in those little boxes and not think. We're going to talk and talk and talk to it, and we're going to learn something and discuss. So, okay, so some things we can do to get ready, right? Learn about structural and institutional barriers that to equity within our sector. And that's not an easy feat, right? When we hire people who come in who talk to us about how to create a race equity culture. Right? Boards must confront their own personal and professional biases about women. And again, that's not an exercise that's easily done. They must develop systems of accountability that address gender inequities with real consequences, right? Addressing tension. So if someone says something that offends a woman of color, what are the consequences for that? Do you have a conflict of resolution policy, right? They must recognize their unconscious bias when placed into the selection of new board members that they're bringing in, like we just talked about. And they must undo racism in the overall culture of the board. Again, not an easy feat and not something that's going to happen overnight, right? You're going to often have to bring in outside help, like yours truly, who can come in and talk to you about how to integrate and infuse DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, access, justice, all those acronyms into your culture. And again, this is not fast overnight work, but the work needs to begin nonetheless. And so you say to me, Christal, what does Black women ready coaching mean? How do we get Black women ready? right? So in your environment where it's inclusive of Black women, they have materials and images that that look like the Black women, that have Black women speak language, right? Core values are instilled that includes a belief that Black women have a powerful contribution to make, right? Goals and strategy are developed that address the assets and needs of Black women at the programmatic level. So when we get Black women ready, these are the kinds of things that we know need to go into place. Images like this, instead of seeing the white faces all the time, images like this resonate with Black women. Show us in your material, in your collateral. If we're protesting or if there's something that we're passionate about, show our faces. Don't have white faces at the front and maybe not have any Black faces at all, or we're sitting in the back and you can barely see us. Put us out front. Have images that look like us, have language that looks like us. And you do that, and I guarantee you, Black women will feel seen and heard, and it's understood that in our culture, Black women are welcome. Once you get them on the board, you got your culture right, you've recruited the right individuals, you've brought on Shavonna and some other members of color, women of color to your board, what can you do to make sure they stay? EDs, you have to onboard them properly. It means maybe creating an announcement like this that you make public on your website or that you put on your social media channel so that the world can see you have some new board members coming in. And this is who they are, and this are their faces, and these are their names, and this is what they do. And we're so proud and excited to have them now as a member of our board. And then when you do your onboarding, make sure you have some staff and other board members in the room or in the Zoom room to greet them when they come to the first orientation meeting. Give them an opportunity to speak and share a little bit about their story. How did Mia get into human resources? How did Dr. Kennedy, she's a primary care regional medical director at Trinity Health Physician Partners. How did she come to be in that space? And so give them an opportunity to share a little bit about their story. Make sure their pictures are out front and center, like on this announcement, right? Making sure there's a mission moment on your agenda where you're showing a video or sharing a story about the great work your organization is doing. If you're working with young girls, maybe even have a testimony from one of the young girls who you've served, right? And then figure out ways for them to get engaged on that board right there in the orientation meeting. Have a description of all your committees that you have. Give them an opportunity to sign up for a committee. Listen, we have a governance committee meeting next Tuesday at 6. We love it if you can come. The fundraising committee is meeting next Friday at 2. We love it for you to come. So get them to sign up in that onboarding session. This is not going to be a board where you come in as laissez-faire, maybe 3 weeks from now, you'll figure out what you want to do. No, we want you to commit to doing something right away, right? And then pair up that board member with a seasoned board member, like a board buddy, like I mentioned with you earlier. And then making sure that the board chair and the executive director is signing up to meet with each of these new board members at least twice a year. Just doing a check-in. Hey, just wanted to say hello, see how things are going on the board. Are we doing right by you on this board? Have we given you the tools that you need in order for you to be a strong board member? Have you seen the bylaws? Have you read the bylaws? Do you see the conflict of resolution policy? We have a board pledge we'd like for you to sign. Making sure that when you bring them onto that board, that the executive director and the board chair is doing everything they can to make that new board member feel welcomed, to give them the tools that they need so that they can effectively govern that organization. We cannot blame our board members for not fundraising for us and not be engaged with us if we don't provide the opportunities and the training they need in order for them to be successful. So how you onboard them from the very beginning, having them sign that pledge agreement that verifies they understand what their responsibilities are as a board member, making sure they have a copy of the bylaws, a copy of your strategic plan, a copy of your conflict resolution policy. They know whether this is a give or get board, whether I'm supposed to, you'd like me to donate $500 of my own money and raise an additional 500 for a total of 1,000. I should know that when I sign on to your board, what your expectations of me are. So there's no surprises down the road. You meet every month at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays. I need to have that on my calendar. Make sure you send them a calendar invite for the next 6 months so that every Tuesday at 6 o'clock is blocked off. You have to do that. You have to be proactive from the very beginning. These board members are volunteers. They're not being paid. They're mothers, they have husbands, they have family, they're busy. You want your board members to stay involved? The onus is on you to upfront provide them what they need so that they can stay involved and engaged. I got 6 other things pulling on me. I might not remember there's a board meeting this week. The onus is on the board chair and the executive director to send a reminder to that board member. We're meeting again next Tuesday. I'm sending you the agenda a week or 3 or 4 days in advance. So you'll have the agenda. You'll have the reports that you need that we want you to look at, whether it's the budget or a new policy. We're sending that to you 3 or 4 days in advance. So you have an opportunity to look at that before we get to the board meeting. So we're not spending the entire board meeting working on those things, right? So you're making my job now as a woman, as a board member, easier, because I'm volunteering for you. You're not paying me to do this. So make my job easy. Give me the reports I can look at. Give me the policy I need to review to look at in advance. So when we get to the board meeting, all we're doing is voting on that. There might be a couple of questions. Somebody might have a question about the policy or about the budget. We certainly want to take those questions. We don't want to deny our board members an opportunity to answer or ask questions, but we don't want to spend the entire board meeting with everybody reviewing documents that could have been reviewed earlier if the board chair and or the executive director has sent that information out earlier. And so let me stop and ask you a question. Whose responsibility is it to send that information out to the board? Is it the board chair, or is it the executive director, or is it a staff person at your organization? I want all my executive directors speaking up because I want to know what you do with your groups, and not some of the same people. I don't want to hear from Tamika because Tamika has already boldly spoken up. Thank you, Tamika. I want to hear from these other folks. Where's Alice and where's Erica and where's Trish? What are you guys saying about this? What do you do for your organization? Speak up, please.
For the organizations that, and thank you, Christal, for that. I just popped in, but I did get a grasp of that. And I do feel like, as far as like other organizations that I'm connected to, we have a field organizer who like multitask and actually does keep us up to date on certain things as far as like, you know, the agenda itself. The meetings from other minutes, the events and activities that are going to go, they're going to like be played out. And we also have a secretary on top of that like actually helps with the field organizer in making sure that those minutes are accurate, that the agenda is out there. So we got 2 people in place,
Okay.
the field organizer and our secretary that work together as a team to make sure that everybody's like accessible to everything, because it's not just our board members that like we want them to have like the information ahead of time, but we also want people in the general group to always be transparent and inclusive to all that's going on. And we want to make sure that they can just tap it and just get to it.
Absolutely.
So.
Great, Trish. Thank you for your response. Sounds like you have some resources to support you. I think I saw in the chat that someone says it falls on me because I don't have staff. Who was that? That's Cassandra. Cassandra, tell us what's going on in your organization.
So right now, well, we started in 2019 and we were incorporated in 20, but basically it's just me and my co-founder. So whatever she doesn't do is like I end up doing it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
So
it's pretty overwhelming.
Yes, I was going to say with a small organization like this, you've not gotten to the point yet where you have secretaries and organizers and people who can do that. So it falls on you. So that's really tough. So good for you. Okay. Okay.
Can I?
And you have any volunteers, interns, anybody who maybe can help you out?
Yes, we have volunteers, and I just brought on an intern, and then also we have a secretary on the board that is kind of stepping up, and she's asking like, "What can I help with?" You know, she's there to work, she's willing, so I'll definitely be trying to move some of that off of my plate.
Okay.
I did want to like jump in real quick and say, Cassandra, I was just about to tell you, like, get your job descriptions together for interns and give these students this free hours as far as like going towards their, you know, their schooling, because they want to get involved in. And pretty much everybody in here, I think, is fascinating and interesting. And as far as like your organizations, I'm sure like students would be wanting to jump on to like help with that and being part of their thesis or project.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me keep moving.
Thank you.
So things that we can do, we want to make sure that that we're being sensitive to women who serve on our boards. We want to make sure we have opportunities for them to get involved. You might want to bring in a board consultant to help with some of the training that we talked about. We want to make sure there's social time, that there's a day of service for women to serve together. We talked about that buddy system. We also want to make sure that we are holding board meetings at times that are convenient, because we know that as women, we have caregiving responsibilities either for children or for our parents, aging parents. We want to make sure that our meetings are in locations that are accessible, that are safe for women who don't have cars, who are traveling by car or train, right? We want to make sure we have proper food and music and excuse me, and all the things that we know that will make our board meetings more successful, right? We also want to make sure if we do have folks on our board who are difficult, that we know how to address tension when tension arises. You know, I have a whole session that I call Don't Touch My Hair, where we do a lot of talking and framing about how to handle it when board members do something offensive, and how the board can respond to that person, and what kinds of actions may take place as a result of it. So we want to make sure that when there's tension in the room, there's an opportunity to address it and to talk about the insensitivity of it, but giving people an opportunity to repair it, right? I was going to watch a video, but it's okay, we're running out of time. I'm going to send this PowerPoint in your spare time, and you can watch this video and answer this question. Just make sure that we're doing the work inside the organization, as those of you who are executive directors, making sure that you have policies in place to make sure that any systems that enact racism or sexism are not being tolerated, right? Making sure that we're hiring qualified women for leadership roles, and making sure that we're paying you as executive directors fairly. Recognizing that inside the organization, there might be some things that are going on, understand the racial and gender barriers to advancement for women of color, making sure that there's education and training about how to advance women of color in their roles. And then we want to take advantage of the collective networks that we all have. We have an opportunity as women to support one another, to be mentors for one another, to sponsor each other, to tap into groups like the Rooted Collaborative and the African American Development Officers Network, and Women on Boards, Women of Color in Fundraising and Philanthropy. There's all kinds of networks and groups for Black women to tap into, right? And so we know that empowered women empower women, right? So we need to support Black women in these leadership roles, not turn our backs on our colleagues when we see that Black women are being overlooked for promotions, right? Knowing that we can sponsor a woman. That means if we're in a position to help a Black woman get further, if there's a great conference coming up, and we know that there's a woman we want to invite, and she doesn't have the money to attend that conference, but you can maybe help her get there, that as a sponsor, you can provide some financial resources to her. So there are some things that we can do as women to help empower each other, right? And we need to stop trusting white folks to tackle our own problems, right? We need to take charge and realize that right now, a failure to embrace differences in our society is no longer acceptable. And we as women need to step up and grab a seat and show them who we are. So I'm going to stop sharing to see if there were any questions, any comments about this presentation, anything maybe I didn't talk about that you would like answers to. One of the things I was going to talk about was that board chair and executive director relationship. It is huge. And so if these two people are not connecting on a regular basis, where there's a check-in, even if you don't have a whole lot to talk about, just like, we have a new staff person coming on, or we're applying for this grant with Lockheed Martin or the Woodruff Foundation, and it's about to be submitted on Tuesday, or our event is coming along nicely. We have 6 new sponsors. Just every week, just a quick check-in between the board chair and the executive director, so that you can keep each other abreast of what's going on. Because if you don't, then you're working in silos. The board is working here, you as the director and your staff are working over here, and never the two shall meet except at those board meetings, right? So we want to make sure on a regular basis that there's some synergy between these two individuals. And if there is a board, they're watching that relationship. Because you two are leading the two most important entities in the nonprofit, staff and the board. And if these two people are not talking on a regular basis and conversing and sharing information and supporting one another, then your board is not going to be impressed, and neither is your staff. So that relationship is really important. So were there any other questions, comments, feedback about what we talked about today and the importance and the role
Again, I want to,
that women have on boards?
yeah,
Trish?
again, I want to apologize for being late because I know I missed some incredible stuff. Christal, but at the same time, I will say this from the gist of everything that I've heard, it speaks volume and it's affirmation. And that whole thing with transparency and inclusiveness is so important, between the executive and the board, and even down to the bottom of, like, as far as like your general group, that transparency and inclusive is so important, because people will walk away. So, and then not be enthused to like continue to keep doing the work. It's the same for the board, as far as like that productivity and that connection. I want to say that as far as the last part that I know you just rushed through, I actually created a presentation, Christal, and I need to get back with you because it's about women bullying women. And how, like, even when, like, a lot of us women who excel into the executive, like, presence of things, as far as like in workspaces, like women tend to bully them even more. It's said that 69% of women who will bully as far as like executive women in charge. And that's so hurtful, because the thing is that we should be lifting each other up,
I totally agree with you.
resources with each other, and always understanding that there's enough space for all of us to fly. So why not, like, instead of like harming her, when we have men out there that like bully us, it's compounding when it's women doing this to each other, tearing each other down. So,
Absolutely.
Christal, I want to, like, I want you to critique my work as far as like the presentation that I did for Florida Rising. I'm a member of them, but I'm not a lead member with them. But I threw that presentation with them. They thought it was awesome. I did that off the cusp. But my thing is that, like, I know it could be better, and that's where the humbleness comes into place, because even as an executive director, even as board members, we're always learning from each other, and that's room for growth and stuff. That's that accountability intentionally.
Yes, absolutely. And we're
I'll leave it alone.
all learn. And I'm sure, Trish, if they said it was wonderful, it probably is wonderful. But I'm happy to look at it if you want me to. So yes, and so I say to you as executive directors and board members and executives, to stay in the spirit of learning, because we all, as much experience as we all have, we can all still learn from one another. And so coming to these sessions where you're hearing from people and engaging with people is really important. So I thank you for being here. For those of you who turned your cameras on to engage with me, I appreciate you doing that as well. So thank you, Joy.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so excited that you could share your gifts and talents with us today. We appreciate you being a part of our Southern Black Girl and Women's Consortium community. I want to thank everybody who joined us today, and also let you know that next month, we will be hearing from another great leader talking about Black women's wins and how we celebrate our wins. We don't do that often enough. So I look forward to seeing you all next month, same time, same channel. And I will be respectful of the time that you all have today, and say you got 1 minute. You get 1 minute of free time to go to the restroom and get ready for your next meeting, because Black women are always busy.
Yes.
So thank you so very much, Christal. Thank you everyone for
Take
joining
care,
us, and
everybody.
hopefully we'll see you next month.
Okay, bye-bye.
All righty, bye-bye.
Queen, Marie, all of you, make sure that